There are people who live as if they were walking with an invisible chain tied around their neck. It can't be seen, but it can be felt. It's the weight of others' judgments, of imposed expectations, of the constant need for approval. It's a soft but firm rope that tightens when you want to say what you think, when you dare to act freely, when you decide to be yourself. And if you don't realize it in time, you end up living a life you didn't choose. You react instead of deciding. You adapt to avoid discomfort. You swallow your emotions to not appear weak. And little by little, you fade away. Not on the outside, but on the inside. Your mind becomes a prison disguised as stability. Your calm, a performance. Your authenticity, a distant memory. This video is not a guide to feeling better. It's a declaration of war against everything that has you tied up inside. Let's talk straight. No frills, no cheap positivity. Because living an emotionally free, stable, and authentic life is not achieved by closing your eyes and repeating pretty phrases. It's achieved by confronting what you've avoided. Your fears, your emotional dependence, your desire to please everyone but yourself. From the Stoic philosophy, combined with psychology and practical sense, we are going to explore 8 ideas that can shake you. 8 principles that are not designed to make you feel comfortable, but to wake you up. To stop asking for permission, to let go of the fear of disappointing, to start living from truth, not from appearance. Because the world is not going to stop to ask you how you are. Life is not going to adapt to your fragility. So either you build yourself from the inside or you break on the outside. We didn't come here to pity. We came to take control. Get ready. This won't be gentle, but it can change everything. 1. Stop asking for permission to exist. Imagine you were born with wings, but from a young age you were taught that flying is dangerous, that if you do it too high, you will bother others, that if you unfold all your potential, someone will feel threatened. So you learn to shrink your wings, to walk like everyone else, to hide what you are. And the worst part is that over time, you forget that you were born to fly. This is how most people live. Asking for permission to be themselves, asking for approval before making decisions, asking for validation to express what they feel, as if you needed someone else's signature to authorize your existence. But you know what? No one is going to come and give you that permission, because it's not something that is received, it's something that is taken. Society has conditioned you to please. From a young age, you were rewarded when you obeyed, when you smiled even though you were sad, when you did what was expected of you. So you learned that your value depends on what others think. And that turned you into an emotional slave, of opinions, of recognition, of external acceptance. Every time you doubt yourself for fear of judgment, every time you postpone a desire for fear of causing discomfort, you are signing your own condemnation, living a life that is not yours. Stoicism makes it clear, you do not control what others think. You cannot decide how they will see you, what they will think, whether they will admire or criticize you, but you can decide to live according to your nature. Obey your conscience. Be who you are, even when that bothers others. Epictetus said that he who depends on external approval is not free, because the one who needs to be accepted is willing to betray himself to achieve it. And that is not freedom, it is servitude. You have to break that logic. You have to stop asking for permission to speak, to act, to choose. Because as long as you keep waiting for others to give you the green light, you will live on pause. You will move forward with fear. You will build a version of yourself that fits, but does not represent you. And yes, at first it will hurt, because when you stop pleasing, you bother. When you speak the truth, you make people uncomfortable. And when you decide to live authentically, the mask breaks, and many will not know how to treat you. But that rejection, that discomfort, is not the end of the world. It's the beginning of your freedom. Asking for permission to exist is a slow form of emotional suicide. It's giving your life to a jury that has no idea who you are or what you need? How many times have you wanted to say no and said yes? How many times did you keep quiet about what you felt just to avoid causing problems? How many times did you pretend to be someone you are not for fear of disappointing? Each of those times was a betrayal to yourself. The solution is not to become arrogant, insensitive, or selfish. The solution is to stop begging for approval. Act with integrity. Choose with conviction. Speak firmly. Walk as if you know that you don't need to fit in to have value. When you stop asking for permission to exist, something changes within you. You no longer need to please. You no longer seek recognition. You no longer fear rejection. Because you understand that your value does not depend on the applause you receive, but on the consistency with which you live. And when you achieve that, you are free. 2. The sacred art of saying no. Saying no is like wielding an invisible sword. It doesn't cut flesh, but it shatters illusions. It doesn't spill blood, but it wounds egos. It doesn't shout, but it leaves an uncomfortable silence. Because saying no is not just a word. It's a declaration of sovereignty. It's a line drawn with fire that says, "You come this far. From here on, I am in charge." From a young age, we are taught to obey, to say yes out of politeness, courtesy, fear of disappointing, to please everyone even if it destroys us inside. We are trained to give in, not to decide. And the most dangerous thing is that you end up believing that saying no is an act of selfishness, when in reality, it is the deepest act of respect towards yourself. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to scream no? How many times have you accepted burdens, favors, commitments that wore out your soul just to avoid looking bad? The price of not knowing how to say no is not paid at the moment. It's paid later in exhaustion, frustration, accumulated resentment. It's paid with your energy, your time, and your peace of mind. Stoicism understands it in a raw but clear way. You are not here to live according to the expectations of others. You are here to live virtuously. And a virtuous life is not built from complacency, but from discernment. Saying no when it corresponds is not violence, it is wisdom, because every no you give out is a yes you give to yourself. Marcus Aurelius said that a person who does not control their will is doomed to be a slave to the desires of others. And that's exactly what happens when you fear saying no. You become a tool, not an individual. You use yourself so that others are comfortable, even though you are dying inside. Saying no requires courage. It requires enduring the uncomfortable silence, the face of disappointment, the judgment of those who expected you to betray yourself once more. But it also gives you something priceless, internal authority, because every time you say no from conviction, you strengthen yourself. You stop being a leaf moved by the wind and become an oak that no one can push. This is not about becoming a closed, cold, or inaccessible person. It's about knowing when you're acting from self-love and when from fear. A yes that comes from fear of losing something is not generosity, it's submission. And sustained submission turns into self-abandonment. Learn to recognize the signs. If something tires you before you start, if it weighs on your chest, if you do it out of fear and not conviction, then the bravest thing you can do is refuse. Don't explain. Don't justify. Don't apologize for protecting yourself. Your time and energy are limited. Every poorly given yes is time stolen from your own projects, your own dreams, your own life. The art of saying no is not mastered overnight. It hurts. It exposes you. It confronts you with what you fear the most: rejection, loneliness, conflict. But if you don't learn it, you'll pay a higher price, a life lived for others, not for you. So start today, not with shouts, not with violence, but with clarity. Learn to look someone in the eyes and say, "No, because I respect myself." And if that person doesn't understand, It's not your problem. Your job is not to make everyone happy. It's to be true to yourself. 3. Break the invisible chains of what will they say. There are prisons that have no bars, but still prevent you from moving. There are no guards, no keys, no concrete walls, just a voice in your head that repeats over and over, what if they don't like it? What if they criticize you? What if they reject you? That voice is the what will they say? And as long as you keep listening to it, no matter how many doors open in front of you, you're going to live trapped. The what will they say is a silent form of mental slavery. It doesn't shout at you, but it conditions you. It doesn't hit you, but it paralyzes you. It makes you modify your way of dressing, speaking, acting, dreaming, all to avoid being singled out, to avoid being different, to avoid disappointing. And the worst part is that you don't even know who they are. You just know they're there, watching, judging, waiting for your next mistake. And you know what? They don't exist, or at least not as you think. Most people are too busy dealing with their own insecurity to pay you so much attention. But you've built an imaginary audience in your mind, a kind of tribunal that evaluates everything: what you do, what you don't do, what you say, what you keep quiet. And you give them power, you give them permission to decide for you. Stoicism confronts you with an uncomfortable truth. As long as you live for the gaze of others, you will never be free. Epictetus said that if you want to please everyone, you're lost. Because the desires of others are changing, capricious, contradictory. You're never going to be enough for everyone, and the sooner you accept it, the better. Breaking with the what will they say is not an act of superficial rebellion. It's an internal revolution. It's understanding that you can't build an authentic life if you're always looking outside, that you can't make decisions from fear of judgment and expect to feel at peace. How many times have you hidden your passions for fear of seeming weird? How many times have you kept your opinion to yourself to avoid conflict? How many projects have you buried just because someone might think you're not good enough? Each of those times, you lost a part of yourself. And no, it's not about becoming indifferent or arrogant. It's about changing the focus. Stop living based on how you're perceived and start living based on who you really are. Because if your identity depends on external validation, you're always going to be exposed, always vulnerable, always doubting. Breaking with the what will they say hurts, because it implies disappointing. It implies discomfort. It implies that some will walk away because you can no longer be the domesticated version of yourself. But it also liberates, because every step you take without asking for permission, every time you express yourself without filter, every decision you make without consulting the ghost of others' judgment brings you closer to your essence. The opinion of others can be a background noise. You don't have to fight with it. You just have to not obey it. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to defend yourself. You need to live so aligned with yourself that criticism doesn't break you and praise doesn't distract you. There is no more powerful force than a person who looks in the mirror and knows that they no longer owe anything to anyone. That doesn't measure themselves by others' standards. That doesn't pretend to fit in. That person is dangerous, because they are free. And if you're listening to this, it's because deep down, you're tired of living under the weight of expectations. So let them go. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be accepted. You don't have to be understood. You just have to be you, without chains, without permission, without fear. 4. If the world goes out, don't you disappear. Imagine a city during a blackout. The lights go out, the noise stops, people hide. But in the midst of all that darkness, there's a house with a candle lit. It's not the brightest, nor the biggest, but it's still there, steady, burning silently. That's how you should be when everything around you crumbles. Because there are moments when the whole world seems to stop. People change, relationships cool, plans fail, circumstances hit without warning. And if you don't have something lit within you, you disappear with the rest. You go out with the surroundings, you dilute in the chaos. Many live as if their identity depended on what they have around them. Their self-esteem is held up by the attention they receive. Their security is fed by applause. Their purpose depends on others. But when that goes out, when there's no recognition, when they're left alone, when no one sees them, they crumble. Because there's nothing inside to keep them standing. Stoicism doesn't teach you to depend on the outside. It teaches you to become that inner fire that doesn't go out even when the wind blows hard. Marcus Aurelius wrote that your mind can be like an impregnable fortress, but only if you decide to occupy and defend it. And that is only achieved by cultivating an identity that is not tied to the noise of the world. You have to learn to be with yourself without the need for approval, without the need for company, without the need for constant stimuli. Can you be in silence with yourself without feeling lost? Can you keep going even if no one is watching you? Can you hold your value even if there's not a single witness? Because the truth is hard. There will be days when you will have no one, days when you won't receive recognition, days when it will seem like all your effort is not worth it. And it's on those days where your true strength is measured, not when everything is going well, not when the world celebrates you, but when you're alone, when the world is off, and you decide not to disappear. You don't need to be brilliant all the time. You don't need to have answers for everything, but you do need to be consistent, be firm, be you, even when no one else is. That's what makes the difference, because while many reinvent themselves according to others' opinions, you become a beacon, someone who stands regardless of the storm. When your sense of identity is anchored in real values, you're not swept away by the tide. Opinion changes, people come and go, life hits without warning. But you remain standing, not because you're insensitive, not because it doesn't hurt you, but because you've learned not to depend on anything that's outside of you. This is not isolation, this is strength. It's having an inner life so firm that you can be in the darkness without losing your way. It's building yourself from the inside while everything external crumbles. It's resisting not out of pride, but out of clarity. So if the world goes out, don't you disappear. Let your inner voice continue to speak to you clearly. Let your fire not depend on the electrical current of others. Let you walk in the darkness without betraying yourself, because that's real freedom, not just being you when everything shines, but continuing to be so when everything goes out. 5. Write your internal code and obey only it. Imagine you're walking through a city full of signs. At every step, an instruction. Turn right. Don't talk too much. Dress like this. Think this way. Don't stand out. It's not a city, it's programming. And you, without realizing it, obey it as if these signs were universal laws. But have you ever wondered who wrote them? Most people live according to a code that is not their own. They follow rules imposed by family, culture, society, media. They act according to what is expected, what is correct, what is normal. And every decision they make, every path they choose, is guided by a voice that does not belong to them. It's like living with someone else's script, repeating phrases you never questioned, following rules you never signed. Therein lies the problem. As long as you live by others' code, you will never be free. You may have success, recognition, admiration, but you will not have peace, because deep down something in you knows that you are living a lie disguised as discipline. Stoicism makes it clear, your only responsibility is to yourself, and for that, you need to write your own code, a personal value system, firm, non-negotiable, something that does not change depending on the place, the company, or the day. Because if you don't have an internal code, you will adapt to whatever the environment dictates. And the environment changes every 5 minutes. Writing your code is not about copying motivational phrases. It's about asking yourself, with brutal honesty, what do I truly respect? What things am I never willing to betray? What principles define me even if no one sees them? Perhaps for you it's loyalty, perhaps justice, self-discipline, self-love, authenticity. It doesn't matter what they are, but they have to be real. They have to come from you, not from others' expectations. And once you define them, obey them as if they were law. Not because someone imposes it on you, but because you decided it. Seneca spoke of living according to the rational nature of the human being. And that means acting in coherence with your essence, not with appearances. It means not betraying your values just because someone is offended, because it's uncomfortable, or because it's easier to keep quiet. When you obey your own code, you become untamable. There is no social pressure that can bend you, no emotional manipulation that works, no praise that intoxicates you, no criticism that stops you, because you're not acting for reward or fear. You're acting out of loyalty to yourself. But of course that comes with a price. The price of loneliness, the price of misunderstanding, the price of being seen as difficult, distant, or too intense. And that's where many people fall. They prefer to be accepted by everyone than to be true to themselves. But you're not here to please. You're here to be true. And the truth hurts, discomforts, misunderstands. But it also liberates. Because when you know who you are and what you respond to, the world can change shape and you will still stand. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You need to agree with yourself, to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I didn't betray my principles today. That's the victory that matters. So write your code, engrave it in your mind, obey it in silence, and let the noise of the world never be louder than your own voice. 6. Break away from the disguise of popularity. Some masks are not placed on the face but on the soul. They are bright, flashy, applauded. They fit perfectly with what everyone wants to see. And the worst part, they work. They give you attention, likes, recognition. They give you an identity shaped by fashion, the algorithm, and collective approval. But inside, something is being emptied. Popularity is comfortable. Being part of the majority makes you feel safe. If you do what everyone does, no one questions you. If you think like everyone thinks, there is no conflict. If you dress, speak, and act as the current dictates, you will be accepted. But at what cost? At the cost of not being you. Behind the disguise of popularity, there is fear. Fear of not belonging, fear of being invisible, fear of being different. So you learn to hide your authenticity under empty trends. You give up your true interests to fit in. You turn off your critical thinking so as not to be singled out, and you end up living a superficial life, decorated on the outside and empty on the inside. Stoicism does not seek for you to be special. It seeks for you to be real. Marcus Aurelius wrote that if what you do is right, it doesn't matter if no one sees it. But in this era, everything revolves around visibility. It doesn't matter so much who you are, but how you look. It doesn't matter what you feel, but what you show. Image has become the priority, and truth, an obstacle. Breaking away from popularity is not an act of childish rebellion. It's a declaration of maturity. It's realizing that your worth cannot depend on the volatile opinion of the masses, because what is applauded today will be ridiculed tomorrow. What is trendy today will be forgotten tomorrow. When you decide to take off the disguise, you expose yourself. Many won't know how to treat you. Some will think you've become arrogant. Others will distance themselves because you no longer play the same game. But that discomfort is part of the process, because you can't be free if you're still a slave to the image. Being yourself in a world that rewards imitation is an act of courage. It means speaking differently when everyone repeats the same thing. It means acting out of conviction when others act for approval. It means choosing depth in an environment that only consumes surface. People fear breaking the mold because they fear rejection. But there's something worse than being rejected by others: rejecting yourself. pretending for so long that you end up believing that this decorated and empty version is who you really are, living trapped in a facade that you can no longer sustain. Freedom begins when you stop asking for permission to think differently, when you give up easy applause, when you stop dressing in borrowed ideas just to fit into a conversation. You're not obligated to follow any trend. You don't have to think like everyone else. You don't have to be viral to be valuable. Your authenticity is worth more than any collective acceptance. And yes, there will be times when the path feels lonelier, but it will also feel cleaner, truer, more yours. Stop dressing in what's trendy if it means stripping yourself of who you are. Popularity is a drug that numbs the soul. It makes you feel good on the outside while it numbs you on the inside. You don't need more disguises. You need more truth, more identity, more courage. Break away from popularity if it means coming back to you, because nothing you can lose by being authentic compares to what you lose by pretending all your life. 7. Close cycles that no longer allow you to grow. There are stages in life that are like small rooms. At first, they are comfortable, familiar, even safe. But over time, they begin to suffocate you. The ceiling feels lower, the walls narrower. You can no longer move freely, and yet you stay there. Not because it's the best place, but because it's scary to open the door. Closing cycles is not always about something tragic. Sometimes it's simply about being honest with yourself. To recognize that what once served you now stagnates you, that what was once home today has become a prison, that you can't keep moving forward if you're still tied to what no longer resonates with you. But it's hard for us. It's hard for us to let go. We cling out of habit, out of nostalgia, out of fear of emptiness. We prefer the known discomfort over the uncertain. We tell ourselves stories to justify what no longer makes sense. And in the meantime, we waste time, energy, life. Closing a cycle is a brutal act of maturity. It means accepting that not everything has to last forever, that there are people, jobs, habits, and places that only had a temporary role in your journey. They weren't eternal. They were lessons, and when the lesson ends, clinging on only generates wear and tear. Not closing in time breaks you inside. You become someone who carries empty relationships, who repeats meaningless routines, who relives old wounds as if they were part of their identity. And that prevents you from growing, because growing requires space. And if that space is occupied by what no longer adds up, there is no room for the new. You have to have the courage to look at what no longer works and say, up to here, without resentment, but firmly. Not because you're cold, but because you respect yourself. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because you've understood that staying there costs you more than letting go. Closing a cycle doesn't always involve making noise. Sometimes it's a silent decision. Sometimes it's about not responding to messages, not justifying absences, not insisting where there is no reciprocity. Sometimes it's accepting that you don't need a dramatic farewell to start anew. Many people don't evolve because they are emotionally trapped in pasts that no longer exist. They continue speaking with the voice of trauma, continue thinking with ideas from years ago, continue repeating patterns because they don't dare to break them. But life doesn't wait. If you don't let go, you stay behind. Cutting off what doesn't let you grow is an act of self-love. Not of selfishness, not of ingratitude, not of harshness. Self-love. Because you know when something is over, but you play blind. You feel the stagnation, but you give it pretty names: patience, loyalty, hope. Don't fool yourself. The cycle doesn't close when everything is resolved. It closes when you decide to stop putting your energy into what no longer moves. Because sometimes continuing to try is not bravery, it's denial. And continuing to carry it is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. You're not made to stay in the same place. You're made to move forward, to transform, to let go of what no longer builds you. And yes, it hurts, but it hurts more to live a life that no longer belongs to you. 8. Don't explain your peace, protect it. Inner peace does not make noise, it does not announce itself, it does not boast, it is silent, firm, deep, and that's why it bothers. Because in a world addicted to chaos, to urgency, to constant drama, a person at peace becomes an uncomfortable mirror. It reflects what others lack, and that's why they attack you, they question you, they provoke you. But what they want is not to understand you. What they want is to get you out of there. When you start to heal, to set boundaries, to take care of yourself, something strange happens. Not everyone rejoices. Some get irritated, others walk away, and a few try to sabotage your calm. Not because you are hurting them, but because you no longer play the same game. You are no longer available for their manipulations, their blackmail, their toxicity disguised as affection. Then come the questions disguised as concern. Why are you so distant? What's wrong with you lately? Do you think you're better than others? It's not concern, it's discomfort. Because you stopped being predictable. Because you no longer react the same way. Because you no longer give them free access to your mind or your time. And that's where many people fall. They feel guilty. They feel the need to justify their peace. They start to explain themselves, to defend themselves, to give reasons for the decisions they made to be better, as if your tranquility needed external approval, as if to be well, you had to ask for permission. Don't do it. Don't explain your peace. Protect it. With everything, with distance, with silence, with firmness. You are not obliged to give explanations for taking care of your well-being. You don't owe anyone the details of your healing because your peace is yours. And many times, the simple fact of being at peace is already a threat to those who live off conflict. True strength is not in shouting what you do, but in not allowing yourself to be dragged into the noise. You don't need to prove anything. If you found an internal balance, defend it like a treasure, because that's what it is. Something that costs tears, processes, difficult decisions. It wasn't free, so don't let just anyone in. Your peace is a wall, not a tourist spot. Not everyone can enter, not everyone should enter, and that's okay. You're not cruel for protecting yourself. You're aware, you're mature, you're someone who has learned that not everything that shines adds, that not all company is company, and that not everything that hurts deserves a second chance. Some people only approach to destabilize, to hook you back in, to check if you are still the same as before. Don't give them that entry. Don't explain yourself. Don't belittle yourself. Don't try to convince someone who never understood you. And don't just do it with people. Do it also with habits, with thoughts, with environments. There are routines that interrupt your peace, ideas that sabotage you, environments that drain you. Remove them without guilt. Your tranquility is not negotiable, because without it, everything else loses meaning. Living in peace is not evading reality. It's choosing which battles are worth being in. It's stopping reacting to everything. It's not allowing the noise of the world to drown out your inner voice. It's clear that you don't need to be understood to be okay. You just need to be true to yourself. So guard your peace with tooth and nail. Don't offer it on a platter. Don't lend it to those who don't know how to value it. And if someone doesn't understand your distance, your silence, your change, let them not understand. Let them remain confused, because your calm is not for sale. It is not discussed. It is not justified. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.